Okay, call this meeting to order at 6:34 p.m., or back to order, I should say. In accordance with Chapter 20 of the Acts of 2021, signed by Governor Baker on June 16, 2021, suspending certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, this meeting of the North Reading School Committee is being conducted with some remote participation. While in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted and a quorum of the school committee will be in person, this meeting is concurrently being presented through a Google Meet and/or by a live broadcast by NORCAM to allow the public and any school committee members who cannot attend to participate. Welcome, everyone. So we're going to begin with public comment, but as we've been doing the last couple of times, we'll do it for about a half hour to try to, people came out for that, but we have a lot of honorees that we're going to, retirees here tonight, so we're going to, hear from public comment for a little bit, and if it's not done by 6 o'clock, we're going to pause, or by 7 o'clock, we're going to pause it and then go back. So if there's anybody here that would like to speak in public comment, please raise your hand, identify yourself, where you live, and try to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Mr. Barrett.
Thank you. John Barrett, 2 Dogwood Lane. First, I wanted to provide an update on the legal avenues my team is pursuing. We're still collecting data and are preparing to seek a restraining order against the school's pursuit of age-inappropriate sex ed, distributing obscene materials to minors under 16, and especially their push for racist and discriminatory CRT and 1619 project activities against the consent, the choice, and the transparency of the town, of the parents in town, which is by law what we're granted. So we're pursuing those legal activities. It's a slow process, but we're moving forward. In light of the emerging 2025 plan that was sent out this week, I wanted to highlight some of the outcomes of the divisive and destructive and abusive cultural Marxist regime that has taken place, that has stood up in this school. First, and most importantly, U.S. News ranks North Reading Schools 99th in the state. We were in the 30s less than a decade ago. Our focus has shifted from STEM and languages and arts and real literature to age-inappropriate literature, to an inordinate focus on identity politics, and you have divided this city. You have separated parents from their children. You have separated friends from friends. And that's why I'm here tonight, and that's why Doris and Drew and Janine and others have been here month after month. That's the first thing you've done is dropped our standing in the state by about 60 places by an overemphasis on this identity politics. Secondly, the high school, middle school library has been promoting obscene materials to library in the library to minors under 16 on the library windowsill, which is a federal crime. And that has continued. I walked by it this evening. There was no books left there, but the books that are being posted as featured books on the windowsill for any eight-year-old going to basketball practice on Saturday to walk by and pick up are obscene materials by many, many parent standards. Third, the schools have directly contributed to the mental health crisis plaguing our schools by creating an atmosphere of victimhood, of oppression by birth. If you were born a certain way, then you're a natural oppressor. If you were born a certain way, then you're a natural victim. You're having the opposite effect of creating a melting pot of equal opportunity. What you are doing is creating the exact opposite effect of what you are seeking, of bringing people together under one nation, under God. And as long as I am a resident of this town, I will pursue legal actions to compel the city to give parents transparency, consent, and choice. In the meantime, I'm speaking to all the parents in this who watch the YouTube or whatever. Opt your kids out of this crappy curriculum. By opting them out, you just tell them to have this stuff go in one ear and out the other. This is destructive, it's divisive, it's causing mental health issues, and you're distributing obscene materials to minors under 16 with this perverse focus on K through 5 sex ed, and the perverse focus on 18-plus books on your windowsill as featured books rather than real literature.
Okay.
Thank you for your time.
Dr. Daly?
Just, Mr. Brett, just to clarify, you believe that the U.S. News rankings should be higher? That's something you value?
The U.S. News rankings of schools, NRHS, we were in the 30s less than a decade ago, and it was before the Common Core hit the school. It's worth noting that in the 2009 Massachusetts Framework of Education was picked up by numerous states, including Michigan, and we dumped it to the curb in favor of Common Core, and now look what we have. The focus of these schools is almost singularly on social justice indoctrination of the children. It is having the opposite effect of the effect that you think it's having. It's stressing the kids out, it's alienating kids, it's creating classes of victims and classes of oppressors, and it's racist and discriminatory, period.
Thank you. I'm happy to share this out, but one of the main places where North Reading High School scores low is its lack of diversity, its lack of courses that are aligned to represent the underrepresented. So all the DEI work that we focused on, I'm glad to hear that you support that, even though you're saying you don't, because if you really believe in these rankings that are national, one of the 30% of the rankings are to encourage us to do more in those areas. So I appreciate your support for that.
Okay,
Even though you may not realize
we're
you're
going to have to agree to disagree, because in my book, the school's purpose is STEM,
No, I understand. but
languages,
you said you
the
support
arts,
us moving up
and
in
real
the-
literature, actual literature, not the trash novels that you're
Yep,
putting on your
yep,
windowsill.
That's your opinion. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay. Oh. Go ahead, sir. We pass it back. Right.
Hi. Tough act to follow. Steve Sigmund, Park Street, proud member of Hornets Against Hate, the so-called far-left extremist organization that was both slandered and comically misrepresented during the public comment section of the May 16th North Reading School Board meeting. And since this is a school board meeting where public comment is graciously granted and is not legally required, I'm not going to opine about free speech limitations, threaten to sue you all, or hand out pocket copies of the U.S. Constitution. Rather, I do want to publicly respond to some of the particularly egregious disinformation stated during the last school board meeting. In the public comment portion, a community member stated that as a response to the George Floyd death in June of 2020, a small group of 100 radical activists somehow created the political pressure to demonstrably change the direction of the North Reading school system for generations to come. When he says the George Floyd death, I can only assume he is referring to the slow, brutal murder of an unarmed black man in police custody while being filmed by a group of horrified onlookers, a crime of murder for whom the primary arresting officer was later unanimously convicted in a United States court. He calls the victim of that crime a violent convicted felon who was intoxicated, by which I can only assume he means that the gruesome public murder of a man already under arrest was somehow justifiable or perhaps less heinous. Then he goes on to reference a local North Reading community group called Hornets for Hate.
Sorry.
I'll wait.
Sorry. I got you.
He references a North Reading group called Hornets for Hate that spews hatred on Facebook. He rejects the statement that all genders are welcome because he knows science is real and that there are only two genders. This person manages to get more things wrong than I thought possible in such an abbreviated period of time. First, our group's name is Hornets Against Hate, which makes the later statements all the more ironic. Secondly, referring to gender in the binary is objectively wrong. It isn't cultural Marxism to point out that that viewpoint is scientifically and medically inaccurate. As defined by the American Academy of Pediatrics, you know, the radical group, Gender is different from sex. For those of us who actually study science for a living, we know that genetic factors typically define a person's sex, but gender is a social construct that refers to how one identifies on the inside. And even the term sex isn't binary and is actually nuanced and typically based on a number of biological factors, including reproductive organs, genetics, and hormones. As any medical doctor will tell you, only a person themselves can determine what their gender identity is. By trying to shoehorn gender into two distinct categories, you're literally denying the lived experience and essential existence of millions of human beings. Denying the existence of an entire section of humanity is immoral. It's cruel. And most of all, it's hateful. And unfortunately, it's all still too common, which is exactly the reason groups like ours have to exist in the first place. Those that continue to do it have no ground to stand on, and the very least of which is the moral high one. It was then unironically stated that it's tough to face reality sometimes, immediately after which we were all given an object lesson in doing exactly that. The person seemed to be offended by the DEI coordinator, saying that he's not there yet and needed to be educated. From my vantage point, that both of those statements are both factual and extremely generous, as they still try to hold out some hope that those who desperately cling to medically debunked gender myths and an 18th century scientific worldview aren't completely irredeemable. If we needed any additional evidence of why it's so important that the school maintain its commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, we certainly got it at the last school board meeting, and we're certainly getting even more of it today. Also, as a quick retort, just...
Steve, you have to finish up.
Okay, absolutely. I just want to say that to the person that said that every single one of you hate this country and everything about it, just want to let you know you are not unpatriotic. I thank Dr. Daly for persevering despite the hatred, deliberate toxic and misinformation you're forced to constantly rebuff on a daily basis. And I thank all of you for your commitment and the work that you do. The kids are watching, the kids are listening, they see what you're doing. While it may not seem like it, the vast majority of us really do support you. Thank you.
Just make sure people address the committee,
Yeah. Okay.
not other people.
We got a hand up, and, well, Mr. Spicer, I saw your hand come up before. I'll call on you. You can unmute.
Hi, thank you. Noah Spicer, 13 Swan Pond Road. I am a North Reading Public Schools alum, and I just wanted to comment at this time to say that this weekend I was at 2 events which were either hosted or heavily supported by students and recent alums of North Reading Public Schools. The March for Our Lives event to end gun violence and the North Reading Pride Parade. And I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations to North Reading Public Schools on raising kids who are going to go out and speak for what they believe is right and try to make a positive change in their community. I think that's very important, and I think every single one of these kids have done these things of their own accord, but with the leadership and the bravery that has been inspired by North Reading Public Schools. And I just wanted to make sure that that was acknowledged to the school committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spicer. Are there comments in the room? Mr. DePatty? That's down.
Drew DePatty, 6 Flint Street. All aboard! The Radical Express train is departing. Non-stop service to final destination, Wokeville Station. Choo-choo! Since the beginning of this year, I have spoken out at these school committee meetings in the hope that at least one school board member would publicly acknowledge that our school system was accelerating down the tracks to the point of no return. I exposed poor investigative processes on racial incidents, which may have led to fake racial incidents not being reported. I exposed how the school system practices critical race theory and queer theory, and how these theories are the basis for the DEI program, one of the 3 big rocks in the 5-year plan put forth by Dr. Daly. Not only that, I exposed how the schools are violating a commitment of Dr. Daly by teaching radical racial curriculum, like the 1619 Project. Furthermore, I exposed the genesis of the radical social engineering programs, from George Floyd to the Massachusetts Association of School Committees anti-racist resolution to the connection to an extremist group in town. So now that the facts are on the table and recorded on NORCAM's YouTube page for everyone to see, what are we to do now? Has anyone in the school committee considered the downside of this radical social change in our community? Has the administration given you the risks or the downsides of such things? Have you done your own due diligence? Where's the report and analysis on that? When you operate from a worldview that white heterosexual men oppress and exploit all others, what does that do to our young kids' minds? Male, female, gay, straight, black, white? For instance, are you by chance encouraging kids to run away from their whiteness, their heterosexuality, or even their sex? This has been a well-documented phenomenon in the recent past. Rachel Dolezal famously claimed that she was black when she was not. Shaun King is a famous fake black man. And our very own U.S. Senator Elizabeth Warren faked being an American Indian to curry favor with Harvard University to land a lucrative teaching position. But why would someone fake their race, their sex, or their sexuality? I can think of many reasons. To take advantage of hiring practices, to be popular with friends, to demonstrate that you're hip, you're educated, you're open-minded, to escape feelings of guilt, or to be on the virtuous side of society. It's almost as if you are foisting upon our kids an identity crisis, but you will be long gone from your positions when the negative impact to our kids and our community is felt. Are you by chance encouraging kids to hate this country and turn away from the traditional two-parent family as a basic unit of stability and cohesion in our society, even driving a wedge between generations? By promoting the idea that our country is irredeemably flawed, will our kids run away from the ideals of our country? By teaching that a white family that owns a home in a well-to-do community like North Reading, where mom and dad stay together and provide a safe and nurturing home, that this is white privilege? Are you discouraging kids from starting a traditional family on their own? After all, why would anyone want to be associated with an all-too-perfect two-parent home in the suburbs that promotes white supremacy? There is a speeding train of radical social upheaval coming through town, and Dr. Daly is the conductor. Dr. Daly cannot make out the signals ahead. There will surely be a train wreck if something isn't done quickly. For 40 years while working for the U.S. Railroad as a brakeman, my grandfather used this lantern to light the way on the train cart to get to the brake. Tonight, the school committee has a chance to pull the lever, apply the brake, and to bring this madness to a screeching halt. It may already be too late, but this is your last shot. I ask you to unanimously reject Dr. Daly's radical 5-year plan tonight and direct him to start with a blank canvas. It's just too radical, too dangerous, and the carnage from the train wreck will be devastating. Thank you.
And around the room, we got smug.
Hey, sir, you don't have the floor here, so. Any other thoughts, comments from the public?
I'm looking forward to wiping the grimace off your face.
I look forward to the day in court, sir. So,
Could I make it just a?
sure, go ahead, Dr. Daly.
Just as a follow-up to the 1619 that you circulated, I did meet with the department head at the high school and the high school principal. It was a supplemental lesson to another lesson, and I'm just curious, that was about northern segregation that was happening in the north. Was there anything specific in there that you would like us to look into more that was?
Why wasn't the 1776 article from the 1776 curriculum? It's kind of
That's not
interesting.
my- But that's, you
It's
don't
kind of
have to
interesting how it was a woke article, but not a
I'd like
patriotic
an
article.
answer to the question. What
That is the-
specifically in the article, what specifically was there an issue with? Was
The
there
issue
specifically-
is
was it-
that you committed not to teach radical curriculum, and you did.
Do you have
And
anything
you actually,
specific? Do you have
you
anything
actually,
specific?
you actually also said the 1776 curriculum was radical. So why don't we have evidence of 1776
Again,
curriculum being
As I said
taught?
last time, we're not teaching the entirety of 1619 as a curriculum.
You just added that word entirety. I caught that.
Okay, I said that all along. Were you,
Please,
Okay,
please
I-
don't comment if you're
so
not
again,
on the
if
floor.
you, if you have something specific that you had a concern with, I was at a loss to figure out what the issues were. It was Martin Luther King, it was the Boston bus segregation, it was things that actually happened in history that were part of our curriculum. So
Did you misspeak when you said that there was no 1619 curriculum in your
I
school?
explained that, and I explained that at the DEI forum as well. And
No, I'm talking about a year ago when you said there would be no curriculum in a school related to 1619. Do you take that back now?
again, what I said was the 60. I know, I understand that people don't understand this.
I don't think you understand what you say and the commitments that you
Let the
give.
superintendent speak.
A curriculum, unlike in other states, we do not purchase a social studies curriculum off the market and teach it. We teach to the standards and the frameworks of Massachusetts, which include a wide variety of topics and ideas, and we use different resources for that. 1619 project has a curriculum that goes with it, and I've said, we are not teaching, we do not download the 1619 and pass that out, and everyone teaches the 1619 curriculum. There's a Black Lives Matter curriculum. We don't teach Black Lives Matter curriculum.
You pick from it.
We don't do any of the things that you folks say we do. But to use 1619 as a handout, as a resource, if there's something that's, published in the New York Times that's worthy and to be brought in, and if there's something in 1776 that's equally worthy, it would,
Thank you. You are using part of the 1619 curriculum. That's all I wanted to know.
Okay.
there does not need to be parent consent for that.
No.
So, just to be clear, just to make that clear, just so that everyone understands, parents can opt out of curriculum related to human sexuality. We always send out advance notice of that. We show the videos to people. It's only in 5th grade. It's not before that. You said K to 5 earlier. It's in 5th grade, it's in middle school, and it's in high school, and we send out advance notice, and parents have the right to opt out under law. Those are the only 3 areas that parents have the right to opt out.
There are inappropriate K through 5 sexual education activities going on in your elementary school.
Yeah, well, please send me an email, because I'm not aware of any of those.
Okay.
We have person-
Are there any new people that would like to speak
say
here?
for the record that my legal actions that I'm working on are targeted at you personally. They're not targeted at the town or the school. So just be aware of that.
Okay. Any other comments from the public, please?
Parents?
Mr. Barrett, you're done. You're done. You're done speaking, sir. You're done speaking, sir.
We're due transparency.
Okay. Any new comments from anybody? Okay. We will move on. Do we have a student report tonight, Dr. Daly, or not?
We
There we go. Sandra. You want to come up, get a mic for her? Steve, would you grab the mic up there? Yes. Pass it down.
Thanks for coming.
Okay. As far as academic matters go, the 4th quarter and the school year as a whole is coming to an end. Our last day is going to be next Wednesday. Finals will be beginning this Wednesday and occurring on Thursday, Friday, and Tuesday, and will be breaking on Monday for Juneteenth. Seniors are graduated as of last Friday, and all of their work has been turned in. In fine arts, marching band will be continuing through the summer, but no fine arts programs will have any upcoming events as far as I'm aware. There were some student-run events in town this weekend, the North Reading Pride Parade and March for Our Lives protest, and while I can't necessarily say that I'm speaking for the school committee, and I'm not completely sure if I'm allowed to give my personal opinion, I think that these events are a lovely contrast to some of the hateful, disgusting things that have been spewed in these meetings and in this very room today. I'm proud of my peers for the changes they're already making in our small community and will one day make in the world. And although they've left, I'd like to say to the adult men in this room who are spewing this hate, you should be ashamed that children are making better decisions and doing better things in the world than you are.
Well said. Any comments, questions? My only question is marching band in addition to band, or is it the whole band, or is it a separate group?
Marching band and concert band are linked. Jazz band is a separate thing.
Okay. Don't know.
Didn't do a lot of band.
No, my oldest is going into middle school, or he's still in middle school, so. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Cassandra.
Now, we move on to recognizing our retirees. I turn it over to Dr. Daly today.
Thank you so much. We're very honored to have several of our retirees with us here this evening. And I would like to honor them and call them up. I'm just trying to bring my document up here. Great, so we have a few folks who are here, a few who are not able to be here. But Miss Sally Sorrentino, a math teacher at the middle school, is not able to be here with us this evening, but I was able to get to see her today and give her her thanks on behalf of the committee. We have some nice gifts for everyone as well tonight. So we have Miss Annie Hewitt. Is Annie here? Annie is a teacher at the Batchelder Elementary School. And we have Miss Gail Tallis. Professional at the high school. Thanks, Michael. We have, Miss Pam String. She's and then Miss Kathy Lentini was not able to be here this evening. And Mr. Joe Hain. And I believe there's no one that I missed, right, in the audience? So, on behalf of the schools, I just wanted to say, your years of service, if we added them up, I think we're well over 100 years of service to the North Reading Public Schools. I have great memories and great relationships, I think, with all of you in different ways. The friendly face at the Hood School every time I come in there to greet me or to answer the phone when I call for Dr. McKay or the door, it's going to be a very, very different space and building. And you've made so much of what's welcoming about the Hood School is Pam being there every time we come in there. Gail, I've worked with you for many years. Gail works with so many of our students with special needs, and she's been just an unbelievably adaptive leader who works with our kids. She's probably the first person here every morning, one of the very first people getting on that bus every morning, riding with the kids coming in, and she loves her job, and she tells me all the time how much she loves working with her students, and it really shines and it shows every day. And Annie, we've worked together as you were a teacher. I know that you were a curriculum leader for many years, and we got to I get to know the curriculum leaders on a slightly different level than I do just the teachers, and it's been really just a pleasure learning with you, and your passion for writing and language arts has always been so important and shined through. So it's really wonderful to have you here with us tonight. I don't know if anyone else wanted to say thank you or share some thoughts.
Go ahead, Rich. Go.
No, just very quickly, I'm really glad we take this opportunity to do this. You guys deserve the recognition. As a committee member, just knowing that there are professionals like you in the classroom is very comforting. So thank you all for your service, and congratulations.
Go ahead.
I mean, I'll just say, I think, working in the private sector, it's kind of completely different than schools, where people are turning over so much. The one thing really nice thing about, the public schools here is that people stay for so long, and you become a part of the community. And, the last few years have been hard on everybody. You can see it's not easy for us sometimes. And, we know COVID has been hard. We know there's been a lot of, division, but, we appreciate you guys and everything that you do. And my only regret is always I hear about, the people retiring, and my kids didn't get to a lot of those, didn't get to all the way to high school yet, or didn't get to, middle school. And so, unfortunately, only one of them, who's not here tonight, had my kids. But, it was so nice to, build this community, and you guys are the reason there is a community. And, we just, we're so appreciative of everything that you do. I know I speak on behalf of the school committee when we always want to make sure we, treat you guys fairly. We try to do fair contracts to try to retain good people, and, you guys, we appreciate all the years that you've given us. So thank you all.
I'll just say, and sometimes we get good people after they've already retired.
Yes.
Brought in
That's
Mr.
right.
Kane, and I gave up some real estate in my graduation speech to make sure I thanked him there as well. But it's really been an honor working with Joe. And, you know, Joe came in first to fill in for a short amount of time as the assistant principal. Then he was up at the middle school. Then he came back a couple of years later, and we kept extending Joe, and then COVID came, and we extended. Joe's been here longer as an interim than I think some of our permanent administrators have been here. And it's been an absolute pleasure. And I think, as well as I feel like I've got to know Joe over the years, hearing him the last few weeks at his National Honor Society speech, and Sean had him speak to the new teachers, which was great, just to give a charge to them. It's been such a pleasure hearing your words, and really the honor that the kids showed in the gymnasium, where everybody was there as a surprise, and to really honor you just shows how much of an impact you've had in our school. And the stories about you welcoming the kids in the morning, being outside in the rain with the umbrella, helping us manage just the day-to-day, and making that personal connection with kids, so important, Joe. So thank you so much for all you've done for North Reading. Thank you to all of you.
I will add one thing about Mr. Haynes. So, you know, one of the most hateful emails I got this year, not about curriculum or COVID, was somebody saying, "I don't believe you're letting Mr. Haynes go." and I tried to explain to the parent that we aren't trying to let him go. We have to let him go if he wants to actually leave. But it was so funny because they thought we were just letting him go to hire somebody full time, and I was like, no, he actually gets to leave if he wants to. So.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you all. You are welcome to stay as long as you want, but we will not be offended if you leave as well. So, thank you guys. Do you guys want a photo? You want to?
Sure.
Let's have the retirees down for a photo.
We have a transcript person sort of here, but she doesn't like us anymore. But yeah, do you want to come down? Sure.
You can have
We used to do it for the transcript, but yeah.
Do you want all of us?
Yeah. Why don't we have all the retirees with the committee? I'll just meet him. All right. Smug at this point, okay?
I've already been called smug this meeting.
I know. We're missing some.
Scott, you guys, there you go.
There you go.
Ma'am.
Oh. Thank you guys. Thanks for coming. We just sit here. It's hard. Oh.
It's always nice to, something nice.
Oh, I'm gonna be fine.
I don't like moving on.
Get the mood back.
Okay. Give it another moment. Yeah. We have a good one. Okay, we're going to go back to the meeting. Dr. McKay, stop causing problems in the back, please. We have beautiful space right out here, so. Thank you, guys. Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Is Dr. O'Connell in the
Okay.
room?
I saw her come in. Dr. O'Connell, are you here? Miss Novicki?
Sorry, I'm here. Hopefully Miss Novicki is here as well. Jennifer,
I am here as well.
Okay.
we are here to present a club proposal for next year. Jennifer Novicki is a grade 6 science teacher, and she is requesting to start a knitting club and has a few slides to kind of explain her club to you.
And that is not my grandma. That is a grandma, but not mine. So I apologize to whoever's grandma that is. This is actually a knitting club that kind of came out of a student request. A few students had actually come up to me this year to ask me to teach them how to knit. And I said that that would be fine, and then realized that it would actually make a pretty great club, as I've seen them over the last few months kind of teaching each other and kind of recruiting other kids. So I thought that it might be a great club to kind of kick off. The next slide that I have really just goes through just all of these amazing benefits. I mean, they speak for themselves. You know, social, emotional, mental health, math and science, ELA, social justice, diversity. So, you know, my goal would be, at the beginning, it would be pretty intense with, you know, kids learning and that sort of thing. But then as time goes on, giving kids the chance to create their own projects, and hopefully it's something that they could have a love for over time. So, and then if there's the following slide, in the event that anyone doesn't believe what the benefits are, I do have, as I am a science teacher, I do have evidence for all of those benefits that can be easily clicked on if folks would like to pursue that any further.
Thank you very much. We usually aren't too hard on people proposing clubs, so I don't think we have to go too far, but are there any questions about the club? Mr. McGowan?
I'm curious, how did the kids know to ask you about knitting?
Because I wear all of my knitted things. I currently tell the children all the time, I keep my house at a nice balmy 62 so that I can wear everything that I knit, you know, just in case I need some arm warmers or, you know, a fetching cap. So the kids they kind of gravitate toward that kind of quirky, like, oh, you can make whatever you want sort of thing. And it's like, absolutely. I want a nice scarf. I can make as many as I would like.
That's awesome.
Is anyone else picturing that insurance ad right now? Where they knit for the dog and made the wife the bathing suit.
Oh, and there's a
You
wonderful
know,
book.
I haven't knit a
too.
bathing suit, and that probably will not happen now that I have 2 children, but I sure have knit my dog some things.
Other questions?
Can I make a comment?
Yes, go ahead.
My children used to attend Waldorf schools, and knitting was a huge part of Waldorf curriculum, and
Yes.
the benefits just shine through with those kids. I'm a huge advocate, and I would like to know if I can join, because
Yes.
my knitting club has stopped here in North Reading. Knitting can be cool, and I would like to join, so. that's
Oh,
all
I
have
would
to say.
love that. That would be wonderful. Open invitation. Anybody, and
you.
that's the point of knitting. Anybody is welcome at any time. There are no barriers to knitting.
I love it.
We can't get her on subcommittees, but she'll join the knitting club.
Yes, I will.
Knitting subcommittee.
Yes, I will. I will
I know.
make time
Jeez.
for that.
My only question, well, 2 questions would be, number 1, are you going to have like student advisors for this, and do you have them yet?
I've asked a couple of kiddos that have joined, the children that have asked me and sort of pursued me to teach them. I did ask them if they would want to help me next year, because, you know, you get a bunch of kids together that don't know how to knit. One person isn't quite enough to make the rounds. So I do have a couple of kids that are actually progressing really well. Kids pick up stuff a lot faster than adults do. So I was hoping to, recruit kids, and then they start to teach each other. And that's where it gets really, really exciting. They don't discriminate each other. They're like, okay, we can all do this together.
And I know it's proposed as a middle school club, but when they get to high school, are they still welcome, or will there be a high school version?
Honestly, anybody is welcome. They always know they can come back to visit me. This is my, I think, 23rd year, not in North Reading. My first 5 years were somewhere else, but I've got at least another 15 to go.
Full disclosure, she tried to teach, Miss Novicki tried to teach me, and growth mindset, but it wasn't too pretty. So hopefully I can come back as well, Diana. We can join together.
There you go.
The kids would love that. The kids, you know, when you give kids a chance to shine and you give them a way to show off what they can do, they would gladly welcome anybody coming in and saying, hey, can you show me how to do this? They would.
Okay. There's no other comments. Seems like this is a club that I think Mrs. Boutwell should probably make a motion to approve.
I move to approve the knitting club at the North Reading Middle School.
Thank you.
I second.
Second by Mr. McGowan. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you both.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Okay. So next, we're going to move on to the Performing Arts Program and fee schedule. And I'll turn it over to Dr. Daly.
So we've discussed this, I brought it up with one of our subcommittee reports. I wanted to just share out the actual proposal that will go into place for next year. So just to remind everyone, to start it off, I think none of us are in favor of fees. We don't want to have fees, but we do want to have programming, and we do want to have opportunities for students, and we want to have more opportunities for students. And in order to support those programs, to have the instructor's time really is essentially the main driver for some of the fees. We want to introduce a tiered system of fees that would allow for more activities to take place at a relatively modest increase. We are making a few changes to the current structures.
What are we currently up, by the way?
Michael might be able to answer that better than I. He just sat back down, so just,
Sorry,
I don't want to say it incorrectly.
Yeah.
Do you know the current fee structure
Yep,
for the,
So the current fee structure is, for a performing arts activity, it's $100 at the high school level. For middle school, it's $75, and for elementary, it's $60.
And that's per activity?
And that's a one fee.
Annual.
Annual.
On top of that, though, there's at the secondary level, there's the $200 fee to just have the ability to do additional clubs and activities that are not part of the performing arts, activities.
so the statistical analysis that was done with the students that we anticipate participating and others, many of them would not be paying the activities fee, and they'd just be paying the performing arts fee. So basically, what it used to be that if you participated in maskers, let's say there was a maskers club, you'd pay the activity fee, and then that would kind of get you into all these other activities, and then you'd pay something else to be in the maskers play. The idea now is that all of that falls under this new structure. So that's a majority of the students that would be impacted. So we don't anticipate this rising much more than $50 or $100 for any person. The idea would be for the high school, again, at $200 for the first activity, $100 if there's a second activity, and $50 if there's a third activity. So if you do the play, the chorus, and the notorious, you would pay for each of those different activities. And for the number of hours that you're putting in, the number of time that you're putting in, I mean, I think, again, we don't agree with fees, but I think all of us that have had to sign up for baseball or soccer or for, practice a week and a game on a Saturday, I think we know how much these things cost. And so this really is, you're getting a lot of attention and a lot of time for these to continue. So again, it's not just changing the fees for existing programs. What we're able to do with this is to offer additional programming. So the two new additions here would be Winter Percussion, which is a specialized percussion program. When you talked earlier about marching band versus jazz band, this is a specialized program that would be in addition to our current offerings. And at the middle school, we would expand and offer our, have an a cappella group for middle school. So by being able to have a slightly different fee structure for middle school, we would have the ability to, in addition to jazz band and the musical and the one act, we would also have a cappella as an offering. And these activities have run this year. The leaders have run these programs with no stipend for this year. There was a lot of interest, 50, 60 kids joining. And so we said to them that, we would run that and we would bring this forward. This is really part of a longer process that we've discussed through the subcommittee for quite some time to try to have some equity with performing arts, similar to a structure that we have for athletics, which is higher fees, but it's the same idea that you pay per activity as opposed to just one fee fee for the entire year. I don't know if anyone on the subcommittee or anyone else had any questions or thoughts to share.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. McGowan.
Yeah, and just as a reminder, so, we instituted fees for the performing arts for the first time 3 years ago? 2 years ago or 3 years ago?
I have the memo right here. It was June of 2018.
Almost 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
And then we formed the Fine Arts Subcommittee as a response to that, figuring that if we're giving that status and that there should be a subcommittee similar to the way there is for the athletic subcommittee. But the fees were always intended to be, that initial fee was always intended to be a trial and see how that works, and I think this is a result of that. The programs are working really well because they're so popular, but B, they also have a lot of costs involved, so I think this makes sense. As much as, again, I guess we can keep saying we hate fees, but they are necessary, so.
And just to clarify too, that we do have some options if students would qualify for reduced
Correct.
fees.
Economic
That's,
disadvantaged students.
That is,
reduced
yeah.
So I think my main concern is that there's no cap on this, because before it was $200 annual, but if you had, 3 kids in schools, I think there should be some sort of family cap. Buses have family caps, athletic fees have family caps. I just think that's where I think it can really, get balloon out of control. I think I am in favor of this because where it's coming from, but I would only be in favor of this, I think, if we have some sort of family cap
Yeah,
on this.
we did discuss a family cap. It's not reflected here, so we can definitely add that.
Yeah, I mean, something like $500 for the year or something
Yeah.
per family or something along those lines.
Yep.
I think there has to be some limit to it. I mean, maybe 500 is not enough if it's $350 for one child, but, and again, even if we have to raise it over time, but I just think for at least in the first year.
I think
I'm
sorry.
I think even if we started with a little bit lower than we need to do, I just think that's where it gets out of hand, is when you have multiple children doing things.
I think we could adopt a similar structure to the athletics, so similar, just the ratio would be the same. So we can look at that structure and talk about that. I think that makes sense.
Yep, I agree.
We discussed it, but it's not reflected here, but we did discuss that.
My only other comment is I just want to make sure that Mrs. Boutwell gets charged the fee for the knitting club. So,
Could I ask a question?
of course.
So if a parent comes to one of us and says, and I see it says rationale for change on this document, but what are the biggest drivers for increasing the fees? This, regardless of the balance of 200 plus then, additional fees, it will come across as it's stated an increase in fees. Obviously adding 2 new additions and being able to have stipends for them. But is there other drivers? These are bigger programs, we want to increase stipends for others that are already involved. So if somebody says, what is the drivers? I just want to make sure that we're clear in understanding those.
And what will it be
100%.
used for overall? Is there a set percentage or breakdown?
Sure, it's, a lot of it is, like you said, the increase in the numbers of students that are participating at all levels, and some of our musicals and plays have involved younger students, and certainly, we're also increasing inclusion, right, because we support inclusion. We've had a great number of students who are able to participate in all of these activities, and there are some costs associated with that as well. So I think that's really important. I know that some of that is coming from different places, but I think a big part of this is, increasing numbers, having an assistant when an assistant is needed, having, when you reach a certain threshold. And then, as we said before, certainly having additional activities. And what we're really trying to form here too is a structure to continue to add. These are the 2 that are being talked about now, but once we have this in place, we may be able to sneak in other additional things each year as they come up. So for example, that a cappella, you start having your a cappella team go to nationals, and now the middle school kids want to start. And you start getting more of this
our own success.
as it expands. But I think, go ahead.
I think Mrs. Kane, I think I've also heard her speak to, she envisions having the ability to provide access to these students in these activities with more specialists and more to come in, either vocalist specialists or choreographer specialists, to really help and just enhance the offering in the program. And this provides it with that flexibility to do that.
And do fees pay like the licenses for the plays and things like that? Would it allow, or does that not come from the fees?
So the user fee generally has supported the direct costs of the program, which is essentially, that could be a direct cost. It's predominantly cost of the stipends and the advisors, props, sets, costumes, anything that's directly associated with it. But yeah, it could be certainly,
Yeah.
it's a direct expense.
Is that well?
We always get the comment that with kindergarten, right, we're one of the towns that has like the higher kindergarten fees. Could you ground me at all on how this compares to other nearby towns, or do you not have that data?
We have looked at that data. I don't have it in front of me. I know there's a page in the budget book that kind of speaks to it, but I think it's certainly competitive. I know I've kind of read it in the back of my mind, and I know
Nothing that would stand out.
No, they're certainly in that $300
Okay.
$300 range, $350 for this type of experience.
And I think our offerings are as good, if not better, as
Oh,
well.
yeah.
So I think that's part of it as
I
well.
get
And
that.
so we're sort of, in some ways, also taking lead in trying to recognize performing arts and athletics on the same ground.
I mean, and I mean, the other part of this is it's also, I mean, just comparing, it's also, if we weren't offering it, parents would be going to a private place outside to try to do this, which is probably more expensive than this. So it's good to be able to offer it, because even with a fee, it's less expensive than paying for outside, alternatives, so.
I just want to make sure we can respond should anyone have a reaction to this.
Yeah, I think we need to continue to monitor things like this and make sure that, and really be clear about what it's covering. And with everything else, we've sort of tried to do like a 50-50, like, it's 50% supported by the schools, 50% by, by the user fees. I think we need to continue to evaluate that and maybe ask a little bit more about, have some more definitive, like, this is what the money was spent for. As we're getting it.
And I think I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was just going to say, the other thing that gets tricky with the performing arts stuff is, how does the revenue from the events roll into all that, and how that impacts the programs and all that, so, or the cost of producing the shows. So understanding all that is always a good thing.
And the fundraising they do.
And the fundraising, yes.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, do we know, and we may not know, of anyone that actually couldn't do it because of fees? Like, do we have any numbers? And again, it's tough to figure out someone who doesn't do something and get numbers for it, but I just didn't know if we knew of any.
Jeff, that relates to something I was wondering, just, Diana said, if someone approaches you, how clear is it to, say, a brand-new student, how to go about asking for assistance? Is that through the school lunch, or what is it? As long as that, because it's not clear to me, but I just wonder if it's clear to the people who are being approached to ask the fees.
Sure. I honestly, I think this is an area we can always improve, right, to make it more clear. I know that it's clear in what Michael sends out with all bus passes and with, there's all different processes. There's sort of an opt-in process. There's also ways that we can identify students on the back end and reach out to them, and we do that in several different capacities and several different ways. It's on the sites where they sign up. It's on the forms. It's in what the principals send out as well. But there's a piece of it that, if you don't see it, if it's not a huge button, maybe you're not seeing it. And the people that really need to see it need to know it's there. So we can continue to improve that. And I also think that, if you're not looking for it, you might not see it. But it is there, and there's always documentation, there's links, there's information.
This isn't a comment, by the way, that we are doing it poorly. It's more like we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we need to continue, but I think we can certainly continue to stress it and to guide people there through reminders. But I don't know if you want to add to that at all?
That's clear. So we do definitely direct families first through the free and reduced lunch application process. And there's a kind of a reason for doing that, because that, there's also other benefits associated with that, and we want to make sure we capture that and properly classify students that may qualify for free and reduced lunch. And then if they agree to share that information on that application, then that would spread across all areas of other fees: performing arts, athletics, busing, and that we try to apply that consistently. Sometimes there's a family that might still be in need, that might be a little bit above those thresholds, but then there's another process that we point them to, a financial assistance process that we extend a little bit above the free and reduced lunch threshold and try to provide some additional assistance that way.
Dr. Daly usually loves when I ad lib and throw ideas out there, so I'm going to do it right now. We are going to have our reorganization, or not our reorganization, our goal setting meeting this summer. And one of our goals last year was looking at fees, but particular kindergarten. Maybe we take something like that and expand it and look a little bit more at overall the fees and where we want to be. I mean, I could even see a way where like some of these fees, like we set 10% of it aside to use for scholarships and then have a different way to apply for a scholarship or something. I mean, I just think overall looking at the fees and the impact of them, because individually when we talk about it every time, and even trips and things like that come up, like individually it all adds up. And so maybe we can talk about it more in our meeting when we talk about goals, but we had a financial one focused on fees. But I think that was just like, oh, let's reduce the fee. Maybe we just need to do a little more research on what are all the fees, what's the impact, what's the average person paying, where are those thresholds? Because, I don't know, I mean, I think we all see there, you know, I mean, even people that haven't struggled in the past, like, things are getting very expensive right now.
Yeah,
And so
that's
I
a really
think
good
this
point.
is just another thing to think about. So, yeah, Dr.
If
Daly.
I could, to Mr. Friedman's question, I would hope the answer is 0 for the number of students who can't participate because of that. I'm not aware of someone, but there's certainly, I'm sure there are some that aren't aware or not there. I would say, I'm sure there's people that can't schedule everything they want to do. I'm sure that they have to pick and choose sometimes, am I going to do flag football or soccer or this or that within their budget? But I certainly, you know, if anyone is in that position, I would be happy to hear from them and talk them through, and I think the principals as well. I think whenever that has happened, we've found ways, there's been scholarships for things, there's been, you know, we are very inclusive, and we want everyone that wants to participate, that is able to participate to join, so.
No, that's great.
That's a great question.
Mr. McGowan.
Well, and it occurred to me that they may be doing this already, but the teachers who are part of these programs, even in informational meetings, you know, just to mention that, you know, there are fees, but if you need assistance, you know, please reach out. Don't, you know, the danger being that someone goes to the information meeting, sees how much money it is, and just walks away.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, I also wonder, even if like we look at a universal annual fee or something, like, because if you do happen to have a kid in kindergarten on top of, you know, a kid in high school, I mean, I just think when we do the research, the goal setting, like just trying to really understand where it's coming from, because again, some years can be very expensive for a family, and you know, if you have twins that are in kindergarten right now, and then you have another one that wants to, you know, do a elementary school performance, it's again, it just gets very expensive for families, and so.
Then you're kind of taking things on a roller coaster, though, aren't you?
Right now, I think we just investigate and see what it is, and
Yeah.
kind of like find those cases that like are really expensive and just see what we feel comfortable with. And I just think every time anything comes to us, we ask, how much is it? How are we going to be able, you know, are there scholarship opportunities, things like that? I just think putting it all in one project for us, yeah, we could talk about it and vote it down or whatever, but I'd be interested to see.
Scott, do you envision a family cap be encapsulating everything, athletics, arts, bus?
Well, right now, we just have family caps on individual things.
Yeah.
So I think right now, we're just voting on this right now, but I think for research, I think we could look at and just try to understand what families are paying. Now, usually if you're paying the kindergarten fee, you're not paying the high school athletic fee, because most people don't have both ends of the spectrum. But again, I think just understanding what some people are paying, and, you know.
What's the average bucket per family, and?
Yeah, well, and what's the extremes of it, you know, and like, and even if it was just like, there's 3 or 4 families that are getting, just particularly getting hammered one year, do we want to pull it back or not?
Just a note, just to think, though, that some of these programs are self-sustaining, right? And the accounting is you can't just use fees from this to pay for that. So we might, you know,
It's definitely more
kindergarten, for example, you can't use that money to move it over there, so I do understand the idea, but we have to be careful, too, with the buckets and how they're used when you start getting into cross.
Okay. So,
We can talk about it then.
Yeah.
look at it, we'll have,
I don't
we have to
know.
have, we have to have a few
I think
goals.
the overall idea of just, again, we don't love fees. We want, if we have other solutions to get there, I think,
Yeah, so brainstorming is the way to go, for sure.
there's definitely ways to reduce. And I think, with our vision for the district, we should be not talking about kindergarten fees too much in the future. So hopefully
I
we
mean,
can move there.
And even when we looked at like this year, my goal was the solar project. At the end of the day, we decided it wasn't worth doing. But we did the research, we got the information, we presented it, and as a group, we decided it doesn't make sense for North Reading, at least at this point in time. So I just think we need to be thinking about some goals for us for next year, and I would be interested in kind of seeing the information on it, so. Sure, Michael can get it in about 17 seconds for us, but anything we want. So for today, we need to approve this. I personally would really only feel comfortable if we approve it with the understanding that there will be a family cap put in place as well. I don't know if other people
I
feel.
think that's fine, yeah.
Okay.
The timeliness of it, though, we do want to update all of our registration. Some of that starts soon, and we want to make sure that this is clear to
That's fine.
people, so. yeah.
So we can incorporate that into the motion, I think.
Yeah, that's the point, rather than just what's presented, but with.
Make you come back and vote it later.
I don't think we have to do
Yeah,
that, no,
yeah.
just like with a family cap in alignment with other family caps, something like that.
So as a member of the Fine Arts Subcommittee who's discussed this, I will offer a motion that the committee vote to approve the performing arts fee schedule as listed, with the one addition that there will be a family cap worked into it this year.
Second.
Second by Mr. Friedman. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Thank you.
What was your last comment about after additions with the?
The schedule as written and with a cap, with a
family
family cap. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably was. I was probably saying way too many words.
Okay. Next, we move on to the school resource officer MOU and school safety update. Dr. Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. I just wanted to share an update. We went through a process over the last few years, I believe, maybe the last 2 years, where there was a statewide look at the school resource officer structure. And Ms. Boutwell served in that committee at the state level. She was a parent representative of the Representative Jones. She served that role diligently. I received updates, and we'd spoken about it at this committee. It was approved at the state level. It then went through the local district attorney's office for some updates. It's essentially the same document that's come out. So we have now updated that. It changes a few things, but not significantly. We had a very good plan to begin with. One of the things that we're developing as well as a part of this is a evaluation tool that both the North Reading Police Chief Murphy and myself will use each year to evaluate the role of the SRO, how it's working for the schools, how it's working for the department, and I'm going to include all of our administrators in that process as well. I think it'll be a very healthy process, and we're very excited about that. And we are supporters of our police and the support that they have in the schools. We think it's a very positive impact in our schools. It's all about building healthy relationships. Our SRO is he's in classrooms teaching. He's with Ms. Lekowitz doing our drug prevention program. He's talking about bullying prevention and intervention. He's in our classrooms. He's in our buildings. He's very visible. And if there is an issue or an incident that comes up, he's there. We're very well connected with our administrative team. I wanted to address as well school safety. It says safely, but it's safety. I think we've all seen that I've needed to send out a few reminders in the last few weeks. I think we've all lived through this. It's been a very difficult recent times in our schools. We convened our school safety team to debrief about what happened most recently in Texas and other area shootings. We learn something every time we come together. We learn something from these tragedies that we can do differently. There are a lot of ideas that we're excited about that we're going to be sharing out more in the late summer about how this will impact us for the next year in a positive way. A lot of great developments that we've talked about. And that group, again, is the police chief, fire chief, there are other fire and police officers, the SRO, school administration, Mr. Clean's there, Mr. Hain, Ms. Oliveto, Mr. Maloney, who does a great amount of work on this. We've continued with our ALICE training of all staff and students. We are going to really try to get even more of our teachers trained, not only as in ALICE, but as trainers of ALICE. They have sort of building-based teams that are the go-to experts, and thinking of it strategically so that if you've got a question, that's a person you can always go to. So really trying to build that capacity. As people have retired and moved on in different roles, we want to make sure we have that consistency across our buildings. And we continue to have full transparency when something happens in the community. And something, even if it's a low, it's assessed at a low level. I did send out an email last week about something that was concerning to us, and it has been addressed by the school and by the SRO. But we feel, in the spirit of full transparency, that that's the right thing to do, even though it might get your guard up a little bit. What's going on? Why did this happen? And people always want more answers than we're able to provide. We cannot disclose, discipline. We cannot disclose a lot of details due to due process of everyone involved. However, we do continue to do that. And I did receive a few calls, and I was able to answer questions that were posed to me, but I cannot get into specifics. But we do believe that full transparency is much more, build that trusting relationships. And I think we all have to work together to continue to eradicate this and make it a non-topic in our schools, because it just cannot happen. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. Questions from anyone? No. I have one question and one comment on the school safety group. How often does that group meet? Is it just like when needed, or is there
Sure.
a standing meeting?
So we meet at least annually to review our emergency operations plan. And then we meet more frequently as needed to review. So certainly several times a year. It's not quite like a monthly or a bi-weekly kind of meeting, but as needed, we bring that group together. Members of the group interacting on different tools is almost, essentially, due to the pandemic, I've met with the core members of that team weekly. I think, and that's, changed a little bit. And when we're meeting about that, we talk about everything. So I think in a traditional school year, though, we're probably looking at monthly or bi-monthly to plan. But certainly, big work is done to review our emergency operations plans annually.
Okay. And my only comment was just, when we're talking about the school resource officer, he's not here, there's very few people here, but I do want to just acknowledge how great a job Mr. Lucci does. I mean, my kids love him. I think kids know him, they see him. It's a good idea to have a school resource officer, but he is the personification of what I would want the school officer to be. And so he just does an excellent job, polite, just a nice person. And, I cannot say enough about how great he is in the schools. So just want to publicly acknowledge him.
I agree. The kids love him. Everyone looks up to him.
That was one of the hard parts with the SRO MOU is there's a lot of districts where that's not the case.
Yeah.
And it's some tough environments, and, sitting through those meetings, I felt really fortunate to be here, honestly, so.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point. We're fortunate that the SRO can take on the role that he takes on and isn't distracted by a lot of incidents that can get really troubling, so, to speak vaguely.
It's similar to how we speak about Mr. Hain as an assistant principal or Ms. Oliveto, having to do that work and still maintain a relationship. And I just wanted to thank Ms. Boutwell for being that parent representative and representing North Reading and for keeping us informed and seeing it through, so thank you.
Okay. Any other further comments? We don't need to vote on anything, so we have an update on standard-based report cards. Mr. Colleen, I should give you I got it.
Mr. Clean, would you like me to put it up on the screen at home?
Just trying to, but I don't know if you have to stop first. Do you mind stop sharing, Patrick?
Oh, you want to put it up? Gotcha. I will stop sharing.
I gotta do the tab, sorry. How are you? Thanks for having me tonight. I'm excited about sharing some of the updates of the work the educators have put into revising the elementary standards-based report card. Just want to go back and make sure that you can see this, and then I'm going to go view slideshow, beginning. There we go. It's been, since coming on into the position, it's been really hard to start a lot of new initiatives in this time. And one that was definitely part of the process of coming into this position was the standards-based report card at the elementary level. And the good news is that it was something the teachers wanted so badly that they were prepared to commit the extra time and work to take a look at the tool to be able to communicate more effectively the progress that students are making as related to the standards of Massachusetts Department of Education. So the last time the report card was revised was about over 15 years ago. Since then, every single standard framework has been revised in the state of Massachusetts. You can see the list there. We have science in 2016, English language arts in 2017, with mathematics in 2017. Massachusetts history and social science framework was just revised in 2018. Arts just went through a revision in 2019. We're also awaiting a PE health, which is in draft form now at the state level, to be able to move forward with that. So coming in and asking our teacher leaders what our palette for work was and related to this, there was that strong interest. And so the way we went about it this school year was a small focus group of administrators and curriculum content specialists. So I want to thank Michael Maloney, the principal of the Batchelder School, Lori Johnson, Math K-5, Whitney Cleary, Science K-5, from the Hood, Amy O'Brien, Science K-5, from the Little School, Barbara Mantier from the Batch, ELA K-2, Heidi Hogan, ELA 3-5, and then our Essentials representative was Beth Weiss, Physical Education of the Batchelder School. So we came together and kind of started to brainstorm what we wanted to look. And so what we did was we reflected upon what we had, then we started to research what was out there, and then we revised to make it our own, okay? So things that we really appreciated about our reporting progress in North Reading was the trimesters. We felt like that was a great setup and the right amount of time to communicate to parents on how their students were performing as related to the standards. Including the parent conferencing, which we do right after the first trimester and right after the second trimester. So you're getting feedback through the document on progress from the report card, then you're getting an opportunity to connect with the educator to talk about what is going well and then what we need to work on as we continue to prepare to meet the needs, the standards that are set forth. One of the small takeaways that was unique to the North Reading card was they mark effort on every single content. Sometimes you would see that as a pro-social indicator or something on the left of the card of how a student would approach their work day or their work habit. They felt strongly that students' effort and approach to learning can vary depending on the subject. So they felt that was something they wanted to maintain, even though we thought it might be one less marking period. So that was something that they wanted to go through there. Then they researched dozens of schools who have done work on the report card to look at different models and templates that were available. Some of the ones that we spent the most time with were Millis, Watertown, Wellesley, Belmont, just looking at the different ways they use their indicators, how they coded the standards, and different things. And the great thing about an opportunity like this is you start to take away the things that you like the most about cards that you're reviewing, and then hold your own identity. And so what they've done is they've done a ton of work pulling together that and looking at some of the state guidance upon report cards.
and we're getting ready to enter that revision part. So really, up to this point, it was kind of reflect and research. Now we've done a lot of draft work in here, and then we'll prepare. The other component, as I just mentioned, was what the state gives you. And the state gives you quite a bit of information that communicates effectively to families on what children should be learning at each grade level in each content area. They have the family guides, which are linked to our website, which kind of breaks down, if you're in, I use the third grade picture, I just threw it up there. Welcome to third grade. They're going to tell you how to have conversations with your child about what they're learning in school. They're going to review each content area, give you questions that you should be able to ask your child, and hopefully they'll be able to give you a little bit feedback as where that goes and through there. And not only do they put that on the website for all, they also put in multiple languages. English, Spanish, Portuguese, and we're working on those translations as far as equity to make sure all students and families have access to what their children should be learning in school. And then that final charge is to remember, and this comes along with something we'll talk about a little bit later too, is just to remember that all students should be engaged with grade appropriate text every day with meaningful real world problems, and then involved in scientific conversations using data every week. And that's kind of some of the educational speak that goes along what we want from our standards-based classrooms and our standards-based report card. But that last line is one of the ones that we're really focusing a lot on right now in a school environment that supports the social, emotional learning, health, and safety of all students. So we've really, since the pandemic, have taken a step and tried to take a look at what data we've had available to be able to make sure that we're moving through that appropriately. So in draft form right now, the teachers have kind of gone through a lot and started to pull information together, not to make decisions of what the report card should look like, to start to make decisions about what information could be part of the report card. So one of the things that is part of our current reporting that we still think is the pro-social indicators. And we really had a focus of aligning to the social emotional learning training that we've committed to this year, and the 5 modules, self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and responsible decision-making. And if you can see, and I know it's probably a little bit small on the screen, you see the parentheses where they've connected. That's our tracking method. If we ever went to a final print of a card, we'd probably pull that back. But that's how we're trying to stay true to the goals of what we're trying to achieve and what we're measuring, by just kind of saying which one would fit into which module and going forward like that. And you can see that's in the draft form. Not everyone has been labeled, and some of the ones that might be the work habit. Some of those things like effort that you might be looking at might not necessarily fit neatly into one of those. And then going through the actual frameworks for each content area and pulling through. They've done this in their content area, K-5, information's vaulted in, ready to have discussions about what those final marks should be. And they've done things like, this is an example with math, the math framework. It lists the practice standards, okay? The practice standards are kind of an overarching standard that you would want students to be able to use to apply to mathematical thinking. It's a little bit more grade band than individual grade level, but working through and navigating which ones are going to be the most important. For this grade 3 to 5, I believe there's 8 practice standards that could be listed there. And they've already started by saying, okay, well, let's start with these 4 and see how many more with the standards that go along with that. The conceptual category are the domains, so you see the operations and algebraic thinking. You see number and operations, breaking it down under the next type of topic, so you see what goes under there and move forward through there. And then finally, what we'll use when we go through that, because you'll never list every single standard that are in the frameworks, you're going to use some of the information the state gave us from the pandemic year, was what they identified as their power standards, what they want to make sure all students knew at the end of the year, because we got cut short of the school year, so we'll use that. And then we'll use some of the information that we get from the state assessments on how many questions are asked and what is more prevalent for students to answer and through there, and still try to get the coverage of all the standards that go along with that. And then continually to analyze the data that we're provided to make sure that all students are learning. So at that point, that's where we close probably in May. And then we now realize we need to bring on more teachers, more experts at each individual grade level. So we have grade level representation district-wide from each school, from pre-K to 5. You'll see we have a little more interest in 4 and 5. That's not uncommon. The more MCAS testing years and more accountability, the teachers really start to focus on which standards, those power standards, and being able to communicate those effectively with families. And so this group has already met once to do the transition meeting, and then we have another workshop on June 27th to get us started for our summer work. And then that will be kind of now looking at well, let me just check my notes and make sure that's there. Their goal will be to finalize a draft of a report card for each grade level, including the performance indicators. That's one that we haven't done yet. Like as far as it's right now, it's the 4, 3, 2, 1. It probably more will be a letter-based, meeting, needs, different language like that, and the verbiage associated with that. Looking for vertical coherence to make sure the grade levels above and below are seeing which standards are there, and that they agree what's important. It's just not at the autonomy of one grade level. And then they'll work with us to plan professional forums with faculty in the fall, back here at the school committee, hopefully your late August meeting. Bring it to site-based management teams like school council or parent organizations in September. And then really, that big question is, we hope that we can run a kind of an offline pilot of this report card for the 22-23 school year, and then collect more feedback from parents, teachers after they've used it, revise, and then, because then the next piece is then making it fit into our student information management system and what that looks like as far as like the electronic card and going forward from there. And then, of course, collect and analyze feedback after the pilot information from all stakeholders, because it's really important. I think the teachers have done a great job as the experts and the leaders in their content area to have good conversations. They're completely mindful of what parent perception and what they want to take away from that report card is, and think about that every step of the way. And that was the timeline that I just went through, with a hope that by 23-24 we could be fully online and ready to go with that transition. So the next year would be kind of a pilot year, collect, review, finalize. Any questions on that?
I have lots, but I'm going to let out the people ask first.
I have one
Mrs.
question.
Botwell, go ahead.
I know you mentioned that the teachers were like really motivated to do this. Is it was the main reason that they were motivated because the report card was not aligned with the standards and they had developed, over the years, and it was just outdated, or was there other reasons where they're like, we really need to look at this?
Yeah, mostly it's the revision of the frameworks where it's not uncommon sometimes that a standard might get relocated from one grade level to another, shifted in priority, how they build off of, the scope and sequence, what the data is telling us might be more important for our students to learning than what were reflective. So sometimes you have some numb standards that might be listed in a report card that aren't as relevant as other things that you're probably getting in your parent feedback conferences and work like there. So it just gives us a nice opportunity to take a look at all that content area and give it a refresh. And the hardest thing for them will be is how it doesn't become a 6,000-page document, and to keep it into a something that is user-friendly for both teachers and parents.
Thank you.
Questions?
Diana asked my question.
I have a couple.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll go last.
So, speaking to that motivation that the teachers have to get it in line, do you see this document as being, or the process being, somewhat of a living process, so that if standards change, come down the pike, you're able to, without redoing the whole thing, sort of slot some of that in and make changes, or?
I would love to say yes on the simplest form. I think in my development or understanding is the framework and the setup of the platform. So when we negotiate that transition to try to better understand what it would cost to make changes to the builds, right. Or does the report card build in there? And Dr. Daly might have different feelings as far as that goes with that, because those standards are under revision quite frequently. And by the time I finish this, like this whole process, it could happen again.
And probably there's a backlog of revisions.
Exactly. So, that I think the bigger piece for me is the understanding of what it costs to make the changes. I always remember as an administrator, that was something that was a little bit more challenging to achieve if there was something we wanted to take out or not assess anymore.
Dr. Daly?
Just to share, just to thank Mr. Clean for this, because I know, being in that role, how hard this is and how long I've wanted to do this and how much work it was. We met, we talked, we got it going. There's a lot of challenges. So to get to this point is long overdue and much appreciated. But going back to even Kathy Willis was here, and we were starting to talk about this. I can see both sides. It's great to have it fluid because you want to adapt with the times and you don't want to fall behind, but there's also changing a report card. I remember Kathy used to say to me, that's the last thing you do, because there's the records, the standardization of the report card when you're comparing cohorts from years, when you make a change like that, you want to be able to say that the elementary experience is similar somewhat from year to year. And so you don't want to necessarily change it every year, because then the consistency might be, well, why did my child get these grades and another child got those? Because it's changing. Obviously, when the state frameworks change, they hadn't changed from 2000, they changed in 2012, 2017. That's when you make those changes. So there's pros and cons to the fluidity. It's the same at the high school with course titles and course, when we make those changes, they need to be somewhat infrequent in order to have that history and the solid background. So, but fair points.
Yeah, good point. My other question was, I was interested, so it sounds like the state doesn't have a lot of standards for report cards, or they just have some guidance? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah, it is the local authority to design that. That is one of my, maybe in the next few years, is that it would be great to create a state level report card. They have it for how to report progress of schools and districts. They control the standards, the development, and the delivery. Yeah. Even if it was a template, right, using the power standards, and if you wanted to do more or less, think of how great that would be we are fortunate in a community that a lot of our students start and finish here, but if I'm moving from one district to the other, sometimes that report card is a completely different beast, and you don't know what you're getting until you get the student in and you start to understand that a little bit, versus if you work on that calibration statewide, it would be pretty powerful. I don't think that they'll ever take that on, but it is something I have asked for.
And the other thing is, the other thing is, so that districts who aren't able to engage in this work just don't have the capacity, don't have to go through the process quite as thoroughly as you're able to do. It seems funny that they don't have that. Yeah. I can see why they don't want to take it on, because it is kind of a balance between state and local control. So.
I just have 2 questions remaining on my list. But first one's a very specific one. You mentioned a pilot. Do you have any idea what that looks like? Is it 1 or 2 grades across the district? Is it one school? Is it everybody?
To be honest, in my view, and I might get pushed back, I would like to go big with this. I'd like everybody to see it. I'd like to get the feedback from everybody at one time, have all the teachers working with the tool, versus having a few teachers and then trusting and then going out and collecting more. I just think it would slow down the process a little bit. You run a risk with that, but I also think that it will improve our communication process for family engagement, because soon as we do that, like Dr. Daly said, it's the end, then we can start working on the rubric, start showing the work that goes along with that, so people can understand what the standards look like at each grade level, instead of it just being like, even on the standard list on that page, it had the standard number. I'd probably hide that too. That's just more for us to look at where we're pulling from on the back end of it, on the design of it. But then I think that's how I would like to approach it.
So it's a pilot in that there might still be changes, but it would be universal, is what you envision. So, and then the more vague question is, and maybe part of like getting rid of 1 through 4 fixes some of this, but I think my big concern with report cards right now is that I never know where should they be.
Right.
Like you get 2s, you get 3s, and it's like, is it because they haven't started teaching that yet, and that's later on in the year? Is it that, like at different points in time, I assume that oh, that's a developing skill. Is that because it just started getting taught, or is it because my student is behind? And so I'm wondering if that's something which, number one, maybe the getting rid of 1 through 4 would help, or even say like, here is sort of like, almost like here's a sample report card to kind of judge against and say, this is really where we would expect kids to be, and then you can look and say, oh, he's a little behind here, she's a little ahead here. I guess, is that going to be part of this?
That's exactly, that was the last point I just tried to make, was once you kind of finalize what those standards are, and to remind ourselves that the standard is a grade level standard, it's your end of the year performance expectation, right? So if you've mastered if I'm using third grade as an example, if I've mastered a third grade standard and I've shown it, I've demonstrated on my diagnostics, I've demonstrated on my schoolwork, what is the district, the school, the teacher doing to make sure that that student is still learning and growing with more complex work, still practicing the standard, not going right to 10th grade standards, but kind of making sure that we know that it's not necessarily the same work that goes along with it, and then eventually have more representation of what work could look like to make more real-life connections to, here's the standard, here's what it looks like, here's what, if we used meeting, that's one of the big ones that I think that will be with the parent, like if you took away 4, 3, 2, 1, and, you know, the 4 was supposed to be that exceptional, you know, whatever that goes along with that, the super consistent, independent, versus just meeting. You've met that grade level standard. Here's what I'm communicating. This is what your child was expected to know. They are doing it. And then making sure the descriptor's there, and then trying to be articulate, versus now I have this next indicator, here's what this means, and this is what this work may look like, right? It won't always be your individual, but to create some of those anchor things. Now that is going to take a little bit longer, but it is the work that we're hoping to achieve by doing this, both in scope and sequence, and more anchors for parents to be able to, which is then under standard 3, is making sure, under the teaching rubric, is making sure the families can engage and understand the expectations for the students.
I mean, and the only follow-up on that one is just like, not report card related, but test related. Like, I know my son came home with his iReady scores. It's just a number. Like, I Googled it and found, like, I don't know if it's current or not, but like, this is where a 520 is, this is where a 540 is, like, but that wasn't provided along with it to be like, oh wow, you're in the 95th percentile on this one, or you're grounded, you're in the 10th. No, I'm just kidding. But like, literally being able to kind of see where they're at, and especially when you get there and it was like, math was like, his ELA was higher, but the ELA standard's much higher. And so I'm like, oh wait, you're 50th percentile on this, you're 95th percentile on that. I had no idea as a parent from seeing those test scores. My son was like, oh look, my iReady score went up, and I'm like, what does that mean? And I had to Google, and again, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but I had to Google it to understand what that meant, which I thought was, you know, not really what it should be, so.
I think it's a good point just to revisit how we even share these things, because those are really used internally for diagnostics, so I'm not even sure what the point is of sending it. I'm not sure how common that is to send them home, so we can talk about that.
Yeah, it really does become a much larger conversation. And
actually, it was Diana's kid's teacher, not mine.
Well, no, but it's, and I do think other people talk about it a little bit more freely because it is a tool they used or use, like you'll see we use them in our school improvement plans, because it might allow us to focus on one standard or one domain or one subgroup, you know, and then kind of looking at all the data we use as internal documents and what are the ones that we're going to use to communicate progress or growth.
Well, I mean, I personally, I loved seeing it because I could look at it and see the progress over the year or the lack of progress. I could see that, oh yeah, he's really killing it in math, but like ELA, he's right in the middle. And I'm like, okay, you're going to do a book every week this summer, you know? And it was literally like, okay, that's something to.
Remember, it's one assessment.
No, I know, but like,
before you do that to your child.
But with that being said,
I appreciate it. Go at it. But
with that being said, anything that is a little less Fortnite and a little more reading, that's probably not a bad thing. But just to kind of see that. So
I think it's great. It's a great discussion though, because I think you need to be at least consistent with how it gets sent home, what's sent home, how it's presented. Parent University is another avenue for us to share this out, because we talk a lot about this. If it's an end of year standard, you know, what does a 2 mean? Like, should you be at a 2 at the beginning of the year because you're progressing towards it, or should you be meeting it for that term? And we have to make sure that all teachers are using the same reference, and then parents are clear what those things mean. So it's a 2-part communication. First, getting consensus among the staff about how their assessment practice, and then sharing that out and communicating out what they should be looking for. And you know, anyone that tries to translate a 4 as an A, a 3 as a B, that's where you start falling off. So And then the next part of this too, which you didn't quite get into, but we are still talking about middle school and high school down the road, and that's in our district plan as well. And, I think we all sort of believe in it. Some of the feedback I've received already supports it, but first is elementary, fine-tuning that, and then looking ahead, so.
Yeah, that one, the middle school is the interesting piece with that, because you have so many schools that are now either K-8, or you see the 4-6 splits, and so you see the standards-based working in some of those upper elementary grades that you might see in a middle school program. The high school is a much larger.
Nut to crack, yeah.
A nut to crack, which, but good conversations to have.
Yeah, so, I mean, again, I still don't know what a 2 means and a 3 means in the beginning of the year, like.
I could tell you, but we'll have a conversation
Yeah,
after the.
well, again, like, my kids are almost done with elementary.
That's right.
Okay, any other questions on this?
Yeah, I've got a
Mr.
quick
Friedman.
question. So we've been talking about more parents understanding. Will these new standards help teachers identify exceptional students on either end of the scale? Like, so, I mean, I know we do that now, but does this help improve that capability to say, oh, someone's really excelling, let's push them harder, or let's get extra help for kids?
Yeah, whenever you're investing in what the communication tool is going to be, you're going to get more emphasis and focus on those data points.
Yeah.
And our teachers are all teaching these standards right now.
No,
right?
yeah.
As soon as the state came out with the revisions, they were looking and reorganizing and put them in, and they might call one standard one thing that's pretty close, as far as that goes. So that's happening. So I'm not so worried about that instructional versus now once you create the report card, then you can work backwards, work on some of the anchor, work on the calibration, look at the data that you have in there. So yeah, I think you would see more too of the standard versus the plus, the check, and the minus, more standards than some of the skills that are listed.
That's great.
Okay. Thank
So
you
I
for
look
doing that,
forward
Mr.
to bringing
Friedman.
more, thank you,
Yep.
because I'm excited about this work, and I think we'll get a lot of good feedback from the teachers who have volunteered to do this work over the summer.
It's great to have a competent assistant superintendent of teaching and learning. I'm totally kidding.
Wow. I was
Totally
I did
kidding.
enjoy it.
Fire tonight.
I just looked, nobody's actually on tonight, so.
School committee's a full contact sport.
And I'll bypass my
Where am I
my MTSS and accelerated learning until that meeting as well.
Okay.
Because that ran a little long.
Is that the teaching and learning update we're going past?
Yep. If you're comfortable with that.
Sounds good. Celtics start at 9.
He's doing a great job.
Thank you. You got some great teachers on there helping you, so I have a lot of trust.
Very lucky.
Okay, we're gonna go past teaching and learning and go to virtual art show then.
So Mr. Clean and I just wanted to make sure we shared this with everyone and to address it publicly. This has really been a goal of the art department for several years. And I can share my screen just to put it up there. If you haven't had a chance to look at the link that was shared out, it's fantastic. We're not gonna go through it all now,
Yeah,
but, we've had both a, in-person art show resume this year, which is great, but there's also a lot to be said for the virtual, and they've really developed this and made it interactive, lots of clickable links. And if you haven't taken some time, I'm speaking to anyone watching this, take some time and check it out. All of the teachers have made it their goals over the past several years, and, I'm just so proud of how far it's developed, and it's really excellent. And I don't know if you wanted to share, you and I talked about wanting to share it publicly, so.
The work that they put in to keep that current and to showcase the different units that they're completing with their, you see the limited space that we have in the building and how hard it is to shift out. This with the digital camera and that becomes a really easy way to see a lot of student work, and how much the students are getting in their art education classes. For us, we talk about how to communicate and celebrate that a little bit more and try to embed it into our web presence, and how to get this into the family's hands is something that we're really working with the art leaders to make sure we're being as successful as possible in doing that, because they're putting this work in, and it is incredible to scroll through, and you get to see a little bit about the work and the projects. So that will be a goal for next year too, to be able to share that out a little bit more, and how to. Because sometimes it's 2 clicks away. If something's not right there on the website to catch your attention and pull you in, it's that much harder to find.
Any thoughts, comments?
Is this,
Alan?
I have to
Rilla.
admit that I have not gone on this yet, so this is beautiful. How do you, is there a way to hover over and get artist credit? Or are you able to see like which,
Yeah, that was one of my comments on this one. I don't think you can very much. That was one of my feedbacks as well.
That would be awesome.
Now, and not knowing, because I haven't had this conversation, because I've seen both, and I'm not looking at them, I've seen them very specifically say the grade and the name.
Yeah.
It could have everything to do with not wanting to release the first and last
Yeah.
name.
Yeah.
And then being able to update for confidentiality.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think in the promotion of that, and I think this is the communication, because we know the best vehicle to get interested parties to look at information is our students. So by able to say, okay, here's my work.
Right.
And be able to go and then learn more about the activity and then have the conversation that you did. But that becomes almost like, how does that email go home? Or how do we get our students to remember to say, let's look at the virtual art show? Because I'm sure that there's some artists that are very good at it. And then there's some hidden gems in here that just aren't taking the time, and those parents or guardians are missing that opportunity to see that work.
they had a couple credits.
Yeah, I can see one right there, yeah.
The older students.
I think, I was just gonna say, this is, I don't know if this is exactly what Andy Dexter and Mrs. O'Brien have talked about over the last year or two, but, they're very excited about this as part of the Fine Arts Subcommittee meetings. They're very excited and put a lot of work into this type of thing, and I think it's a great way to get it out to the public.
My comment, a couple comments. Number one, I think it's great to be able to do this, but I hope it's not a replacement for other things too.
Right.
Because I will say, the elementary kids love going and showing them where it is. And the other thing that you lose a little bit is the scale of some of them. Like when you look in Main Street, when you come into the building, like just seeing the size of something, like on this one, it's just a photo of it. It's like, oh my God, like it's amazing, like how big some of them are and how detailed they are. Like I was literally having a fight with my daughter. She's like, that's not real. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, nobody drew that. And I said, they did draw that. She was like, no, they couldn't have drawn that. And I'm like, that's literally somebody's drawing, but just seeing the size of it and the detail of some of it. So again, it's great to be able to have this. It's easily accessible for a lot of people. Share it with grandparents, everybody else. But hopefully, again, I like being also able to see it in person too. So,
And we've certainly had both.
Yeah.
And, I think just to address to, there's a lot of artistic expression here, a lot of student choice. And we always value students being able to express themselves, but we're open to a wide range of views. And I think we would always encourage students, and again, the students come to us with their ideas and they want to express themselves through various projects. And I think that the artistic expression is just a great way for them to learn about who they are and to share what means the most to them, so.
okay. Any thoughts, comments, questions? Excellent update. Thank you. Move on. NRPS 2025.
So I will share just briefly with you information that we shared out on our website. We have launched the draft for public comment, and just wanted to briefly put that up there and take if there are any questions that folks had. So just give me one moment.
And I'll just clarify for the committee, because of the comment earlier, we're not actually voting to accept it. This is Dr. Daly's work. We evaluate him.
Mhm.
We've given him comments throughout. We're members of the public. Many of us participated in it. We can give him feedback, but we're not actually voting to accept it. We haven't done that in the past, so we can ask questions, but ultimately this is his domain, essentially.
Yeah, and I like to think of it as all of ours, because I have not sat in a room and, I've sat in a room and worked on parts of it, but our team has worked on this. It's been very collaborative. We took feedback from hundreds of people who gave us these suggestions. We did make a video that folks can watch that explains what I'm about to share with you. I'm just going to go very briefly through this because I'm sure many of you have seen it, but this is the idea of this being an interactive graphic so that you can go in and look at any of these areas. If you were to click on Student Support Services, What would come up, I think I'm going to be able to share this. It's going to show you the entirety of student support services. The purple is where we were at the time when we started this process, and then each of the initiatives here, and there's a lot more information too, because it shows you the persons responsible, the resources, the outcomes, the outputs, other related objectives, and some comments. And then it goes through all of the years, and it goes through all of, the blue is where we want to be at the end of the plan. And then it goes through all of the different strategic indicators that are listed. So this is this view. If we were to go back to here, what we made very accessible is if someone wants to see, well, what are we doing in terms of diversity of workforce and hiring practices? And so this view would show you just the objectives by year. So it just makes it a little bit easier to see if you want to just see what is diversity of workforce hiring practice in 21-22, 22-23, 23-24, 24-25. And then again, the blue is where we hope to get, this is the vision statement, which again, these are a composite of what was submitted last summer from all stakeholders, parents, community members, teachers, administrators, all staff that shared that. And then the third view that we thought would be interesting if folks wanted to click and see would be just, if you want to look at just teaching and learning, let's say, for the 22-23 school year, this just shows you the strategic initiative, the outcomes, the outputs. So it's all the same information. You can access it in multiple different ways. It's just different ways that might be more appealing to you or more easily digestible if you're just sort of glancing. But this just brings you through the entire of teaching and learning for the 22-23 school year only, so you can really see. I would say this document is going to be very helpful to anyone that's looking to align their school improvement plans or their educator goals or their district goals with the work that we're doing. So this is out.
Or their school committee goals.
Yeah, sure. So this is open for, I'm sorry, this one may not have been visible when I was just speaking, but this is the 22-23 year only. And so this is out for public comment. There is a Google Doc. I'm hoping to get feedback by the end of the month so that we can use this information to inform our work at the retreat with our administrative team, and then also in late summer with our full curriculum leadership team, which involves all of our teacher leaders as well, because we're going to focus a lot on some of the aspects of this, but then also just revising the work itself. So it's taken us a while. It's we've worked under this framework for this year in all our budget development and alignment. We now have a very clean, it's going to be closer to a 3-year plan, which is, no one says it has to be 5. It's a 3-year plan that we then, as we approach 2025, we'd revisit that and most likely at that time, maybe do another 5-year. But the main structure and changes that we made are in place, so.
Okay. Comments, questions, thoughts?
I have seen the video, and it's a great introduction to the site and what you can do, and obviously, setting aside the content for just a moment, the design is really well thought out in terms of making it user-friendly, so.
Agreed. Thank you.
Can I just,
Mr. Clean?
whenever that was all Dr. Daly. And just in taking all that information and coming in on a Monday and then sharing it with us in the central office administrators, I couldn't agree with you more. It to the level of detail and the ease to digest the content that is in there. I'm really proud of the work that went into creating it, but I want to celebrate and recognize the work that he did to make that a useful tool for everyone to be able to use, because it's very, very impressive.
No, I've been going through it. It's very user-friendly. It's great.
Great. I played around with it as well. And my only thing is like very specific things, like I was talking to Dr. Dale earlier about something, and I asked, like limiting AP classes, is that in the plan or is that not in the plan? And I know that they're kind of vague, so like some things can apply to it, some can't, but and again, and as he said, and he'll say now if I shut up, but he'll say, like that doesn't mean it's the only thing we're doing. There's other stuff that we're working on as well, but it has to be able to grow for, and fit the situation over the next 3 years as well. But
So I think if you were to look, for example, at TL, it should be 2.4, I gotta update that, it's at 3.1, but this is the one that talks about the, some of the changes to the AP courses. So that's a great example. If you feel like something's not there that you were hoping to see, that'd be a great place to comment. And it's set up that you can't comment on everything, or you can just focus in. But I strongly encourage people to read through and give feedback, and not just at the top level. You know, a lot of the comments we hear is like, don't do DEI. Go in and look at what it says and tell me exactly what's in there that you feel shouldn't be done, because I think when you do that, you're gonna realize first of all, there's a lot more to this plan. We talk about cybersecurity, school safety, MTSS, interventions, course alignment, eliminating kindergarten fees. Like, equity is very representative of all those things. But, if you've got questions, if you're looking, if someone wants more world language, less world language, more computer science, all those things are in here, and we'd love that specific feedback, because it's highly specific. One of the biggest changes I think you'll see is the language. It's all active verbs. It's not continue to support. There's a little bit of that, but a lot of it is, here are some things we're going to do this year to really make a difference. So that's been a big shift that we've worked on as a team. So.
And I know it was early. Have you had any feedback?
We have had some feedback. Yep. We have had some feedback, and we'll share that out. And it's always, you're always going to get some that come on this side, some that come on this side, and we kind of take it all into account. And we've had feedback in general, and people have used this from the community, because I did put it in the newspaper, so we did get some community feedback on other things that wasn't, they saw this as an opportunity to talk about substance abuse issues in the community. So I'm going to be sharing that. I'm going back to CADCA tomorrow. I'm leaving at 4:30 in the morning, and I'm going to share that there, because it's unbelievable that someone took the time to share that. So I mean, we're being very transparent. This is not something that we need someone to come and share. Like, wake up, look what's going on. I'm putting it out there. Everybody can see what we're working on, and everybody can give feedback. And I look forward to sharing that out when we get that.
So, quick question: what do you consider your biggest barriers or concerns for success in the next couple of years? And I ask that with an eye toward what could we do to help remove those?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, the biggest, it's always, finance is what just jumps to mind. And it's the idea that there are positions in here, and we're trying to, that's something I'm going to continue to work on to highlight a little more. I've highlighted them in blue. I might do a pull out of just the finance piece, like wherever there's a position impact, I try to pull that out, but I want to do that a little bit more. But some of the positions that are in here are building on positions that exist under ESSER funds that we're going to need to support. Some of the positions, I think, of the curriculum leadership, we've had those administrative positions in there for years. We had a shift this year. I met with our high school curriculum leaders just the other day and listened to their feedback about what this year was like, going back to teaching more classes. And it's always great that they're firmly grounded in the classroom, but it's hard when you've now lost that free period to be there. But the second part of that is we need an administrative level position to work 612 to oversee, and if we don't have that, we're not going to be able to achieve a lot of the things that fall under there. So that's certainly a big piece. I would say, so obviously finances, and I would say the other, time always goes hand in hand with that. So finding the time, the way to do it, but I think our structure of having the curriculum leaders, our teacher leaders at our summer retreat was a big change in the last couple of years, to get that work kickstarting the year and to have that alignment. So when they're meeting there, trying to make those connections so that it's not, this is not the superintendent's plan, this is not the district plan, this is everyone's plan, including students, teachers, parents, everyone. So when we have a school improvement goal that's aligned with this goal, and when our educator goals are aligned, I want them to be able to see, and that's part of why we did the indicators, so they can really think about, when I'm choosing my goals, how am I helping the school meet its goals, and how is the school meeting the district goals? So I think it's a challenge, but that's what I'm really excited about, and a lot of people have said that they see themselves in here more, and they're able to connect it. So I think that's a challenge we'll be able to tackle. So,
great.
But thank you for the question.
No, great.
Okay. Well, excellent job. Thank you. I'm
Fantastic.
very interested to see what the feedback is. So I just keep coming up with specific questions that I want to ask right now. Actually, I'll ask one specific question, but it might be more for Mr. Clean for the elementary. But is Global Child going to continue? And is there any thought about changing that or moving? I mean, Global Child was introduced at the elementary schools as an introduction to language, and I don't know. I mean, it seems like it's sort of dwindled off a little bit from what I can see, but maybe that's just little. Has the participation in?
It's, I mean, I think COVID's had an impact, right?
Yeah.
I think there's been things there. That's a program that we looked at for several years. There's a way to expand language offerings to the elementary schools, to bring in some languages that we don't quite have at the secondary level. It's an appetizer. It gets us ready. I think in our plan, we have an expansion of world language possibility that we talk about. Some of the feedback I've received is about that. But I think it's still a viable piece, especially if you want to learn Chinese. This is the way to start learning Chinese, to get a head start on Spanish or, I said Spanish or French? Spanish or French. I do think that it's all based on enrollment and numbers and interest. And I think people, you know, if numbers are down, I think they are down a little bit overall, but I still think it's a viable program, and I know the people that participate value it. So I don't know if you have similar thoughts or.
I think Global Child has been an excellent resource for our students and families who want to accelerate that process. And then even at the middle school level, I don't think there are any courses right now because of the French and Spanish, but I also appreciate the opportunity to get more languages in as we start to consider what our world language program offerings look like, you know, and what we want to offer between ASL. You know, there's just so many different opportunities for students too. So I think it will give us more feedback and give our students more experience to give us feedback for direction.
I just didn't know if there was going to be an expansion of it, if it was going to come into the curriculum at all, if it was going to be a little bit longer, or
that's some of the feedback
how it would be. So.
Yeah, that's some of the feedback that I think we're receiving. You know, and just as Dr. Daly referred to, some of the obstacles, and it's kind of similar to the performing arts fee. It's time. How much do we have, and how much can we do with the allotted time that we have with our students? And those are the decisions that we'll need to continue to look at where we go.
Okay. Thank you very much. Moving on to the school committee meeting schedule for next year.
So thank you. So I just wanted to, I shared with you some draft meetings. It was brought to my attention that we scheduled something on the Rosh Hashanah, I believe, and so we will reschedule that. That is not a good evening to have that meeting, and I will move that. But July 25th is proposed as a date for the summer for us to review the superintendent's goals and the school committee goals. And if that date works for most folks, we can hold that, and we would schedule an evaluation subcommittee meeting prior. August 29th is proposed as the date for the workshop. We've done this similar date in the past, 4:30 p.m., and then we could also meet as a whole group and talk about the budget. And knock on wood, there's going to be no reopening plans or anything like that to discuss that year, and I think we're beyond that, which is great. So those are the two main dates. The other dates I mostly rolled forward. I did add in the reorganization meeting on the Monday after. And so I believe the other dates, they should all be Monday evenings, except for some of the budget workshops as we've had in the past. But I don't know if there were any questions or concerns about any dates that you noted.
I mean, I think we could adjust a couple of them. Like, we did the one budget workshop, you have it at 8:45 a.m. We did that this year, but I don't know if we need to do that. I don't know. And then, just for the evaluation subcommittee, I would just say, we have 2 new people on the evaluation subcommittee, and you guys are kind of tasked with getting it all together. And so, is it Jeff and Noel on it?
Yep.
So I'm sure Dr. Daly can kind of give you the framework, but we need to get it out to us to evaluate ourselves on whether we did this or not. I suspect Dr. Daly's review will be better than our own review. So just remembering what our goals were and what I've seen. So
we can work through that. All the templates exist. We'll just work through the process.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
And then that's all
Do we
I have.
not have another meeting scheduled in June? Is this our last meeting?
This is our last meeting.
Last meeting, and right now, I don't think there's been any change to the open meeting law stuff, so right now, it is required to be in person. So the July 25th and August 29th would be in person. I would propose, if it is extended, that possibly July 25th, we could even do a virtual meeting. I don't know. I don't know what everybody's vacation schedules are, but we can address it if things get kicked out. But I think the goal-setting one would be easier if we're in person.
Yeah.
But, you know, the mid-July one, I know everybody has different vacations and things like that, and so, I think if it's a light agenda and we can do it in virtual, but currently, it expires in July 15th, so.
I think there are some, they're discussing, I mean, there's some bills in the legislature about it, but yeah, who knows what'll happen.
So.
They're running out of time, so.
Other than that, Monday evenings work pretty much for people?
Yeah, that's fine.
Good?
Yep.
Thank you. I know Dr. Taylor preferred Thursdays before, but we'll try to get you out of here early enough, so.
Yeah.
Okay, so do we want to vote to approve, I think just with the one contingency that the meeting on Rosh Hashanah will be moved?
I will amend that meeting.
And even if that one was like, maybe if we did a different night of the week that week or something, if we needed to.
Yeah, we might even go later too, because with the MCAS, we're not sure the timeline for when
Okay.
that's coming out, so that we might want to.
You'd have to do like Wednesday or Thursday.
Yeah. We've done Thursdays for a little bit. We tried a couple Thursday night ones, so.
But even if you did it the week after, you're still sort of fine. Like if you did the following Monday.
You'd be fine the next week. Yeah, yeah, no, I know, yeah.
Right now, there's town meeting, and then, and then.
We have a town meeting.
Trick with October is you've got Halloween in there, so, but we'll.
If you
we'll
want
squeeze it.
later in the week, that should be fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so if I can have a motion to approve the 2022-2023 meeting schedule.
I move to approve the 2022-2023 school committee meeting schedule with the one noted amendment.
Second.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Now we get to, who's our minutes person now? Who do we appoint?
I don't know.
Somebody gets to run through the minutes now, so.
Oh, I think it was me, wasn't it?
I think it was you.
I think I did it last time.
There you go.
yeah.
I'll just hand them to you.
Oh, my glasses. I move to approve the regular meeting minutes for May 2nd, 2022, as written.
Second?
Second by Rich. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
And
29th.
I'm getting there, I'm a slow scroller. And I move to approve the regular meeting minutes for May 9th, 2022, as written.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move to approve the executive session minutes for May 16th, 2022, as written.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move to approve the regular meeting minutes for May 16th, 2022, as written.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous?
I move to approve the regular meeting minutes for June 6th, 2022, as written.
Second?
Any discussion? I have one suggested change. I think it says that we vote to approve the warrant articles. We actually vote to recommend the warrant articles.
Hmm.
So I would just change the wording to vote to recommend.
You can do that.
Because it gets approved at town meeting, so.
So I'll change the motion.
So, yeah, so with that,
Move to approve the regular meeting minutes for June 6th, 2022, with the amendment of changing the word approved throughout to recommended.
And I will second that as well.
okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? Budget update?
None this evening?
Staffing update?
None at this time. We would like to introduce the new high school assistant principal, possibly in July or August. So,
Excellent. Bids and donation, McCowan.
Have a few this meeting. I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $3,667.04 from the North Reading High School Parents Association to help fund the class of 2022 senior prom.
Second?
A motion and a second, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
Was the prom wonderful?
I was not at the prom this year, but I heard from Mr. LaPrette that it was a great success and that everyone was so well behaved and. I'll speak to
That's great.
graduation in a minute too.
Yep.
I was at Paul McCartney, as many of you may know.
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $810 from John There's a way to pronounce that, and I'm. Genesiewicz?
Yep.
Okay, thank you. To support the girls' soccer program at the high school.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $235 from an anonymous donor to fund an 8th grader's field trip at the middle school.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
Sounds like, without getting into the details, it speaks to what we were talking about earlier.
It does.
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $790 from the Batchelder School Parents Association to fund the kindergarten field trip to the Stone Zoo.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $622 from the North Reading Middle School Parents Association to purchase sling bags for the 8th grade fun week at the middle school.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $2,129 from various North Reading parents to offset the Cooperstown trip for the baseball team at the high school.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude an in-kind donation of gift cards valued at $2,000 from International Family Church to be given to the North Reading educators in the district.
Second?
And I would,
Discussion?
I would just say, this is the same group that made such a generous donation last year, right?
Yep.
Was it last year?
It was 2 years ago or a year?
2 years ago.
Yeah, and they've also offered to do something in the fall with staff as well. So they've been very generous to us and to other local communities as well.
Yep.
Yes, excellent. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $19,000 from the North Reading High School Music Boosters for the purchase of new uniforms for the high school marching band.
Second?
Any discussion? I would just say, what a great
Wow.
fundraiser.
Yep,
So,
great fundraiser.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation of $11,300 from North Reading High School Hall of Fame to purchase a stadium scoreboard and table cover for the high school.
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
I feel like table cover and scoreboard are,
Yeah.
but great, anyway.
One more.
Yep. I move that the school committee vote to accept with gratitude a donation in the amount of $4,945 from the Hood School Parents Association to help defray the costs of class field trips.
Second?
This is where somebody else is supposed to say second, just to mess with her.
Oh, no, that's fine. I would never do that.
Discussion.
I would never.
Not when there's that many.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, unanimous?
Yeah, so when we have a sequence like that, we try to keep it the same.
Yeah,
It's easy to
I
record.
learned that the
Yeah.
first
No,
time.
just jump in. Just jump in, it's fine. She likes
When
it.
you get comfortable to
Keep her out
start
of
messing
toes.
with people, that's
Keep her out of
that's
toes.
one of the things you can do.
Okay, thank you very much to the community, very generous.
It's a great end to the school year.
Subcommittee updates, Athletic Subcommittee met on May 18th at noon. Mr. McGowan will provide an update.
I will, to the extent that I am able. It feels like a lot of the things we talked about, there have been updates since then. So one of the things we talked about was the message board. I think that was discussed at that meeting, and it's since been installed and is up and running, and that was great to see. Talked about scoreboard for which field did we talk about?
With the football field.
The football field? there was some discussion about the storage container as well, but one of the things that I thought was interesting from that meeting was, I think Dave Johnson, Mr. Johnson said that participation in sports this year is trending up towards 70% of, and I wasn't sure if he was saying what I thought he was saying, which is that 70% of students in the high school have participated in a sport at some point this year.
That's what I thought I heard.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's high or low. It feels high to me. And I think
Seems
it's a
like a
great
high percentage.
What's that?
I said that seems like a high percentage.
Yeah.
I know we're at 305 students, so there's about 620.
Yeah.
So I think it's probably more around 50%.
But closer to 50%. Still a great number.
Yeah.
What else did I miss of substance?
I think that, I think that's what was added there. We did discuss, 8th grade waivers and where that is going and just some of the programs that need some expansion. We also have, I've met with Mr. Johnson also. We're continuing to expand our field hockey program. We have great coaching staff there and our lacrosse programs as well. And so I'll just add to, just as an update, our sports teams that have continued to perform at such a high level, making the state tournament, winning division titles, and we talked a little bit about the baseball netting projects as well. That's sort of a long-term goal and some of the pieces there. I think, just to go back to the sign as well, I know that Mr. Connolly, Mr. LaPrette worked very hard to see that through, and I think we've, Ms. Boutwell had reached out earlier about trying to keep the charm of the original and the traditional sign, and I think we've achieved that. You seem to agree.
I did agree. I was surprised when I saw it because I was waiting to cringe at these flashing lights that I see at some of the other schools. And I was like, oh, it's adorable. It's our town.
Yeah, it's not the Vegas Strip or, but it does have that ability to, and it's been put to great use, just being able to put some important messages up there without having to, to stand in the rain with the little letters one at a time. That, the ability to very quickly go from graduation to exam week or whatever the messages are has been really very welcome. But I think they did it in a nice way, traditional way, so that's great.
Okay. Fine Arts Subcommittee, Mr. McGowan and Mrs. Rudloff. It's Rudloff, not Rudloff, right?
Rudloff, right, yeah. No.
Should have asked that probably at the beginning of the meeting, but.
No, it's fine.
Or like a month ago.
I respond to all kinds. Rich, do you want me to?
Yeah.
I'll do my best. It was my first subcommittee meeting. The discussion of the district credit card, looking to see if that could be I guess it has a pretty low limit. And I don't know what the resolution was there, if there was no resolution.
We've actually made
resolution, yeah.
Yeah,
So
we made some adjustments, yeah.
There was a resolution, so we, it's something we've been trying to make happen for a while. And, first, a few years ago, we were fortunate that we were able to kind of finally get a credit card. So the limit did start low. We doubled it about a couple of years ago, but we're still finding that the limit was challenging. So the limit was $3,000 prior. I'm happy to report it's now at $7,500, which should make things a lot easier.
Okay, great. Yeah, because they were having to use their own personal credit cards and get reimbursed.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right.
Just
We
from
have a better
places that don't
process.
accept POs and things like that, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then, let's see, review of just some of the events, the district art show, the course and the band, and also, there was a little discussion about challenges they were seeing or anticipating with lower enrollment in the theater program and the course program, and if it would kick back up now that things are back to, in person. And there was some concern there, but I guess time will tell. See.
And specifically in the elementary grades.
Well, yeah, and that kind of, it goes into the elementary theater program because there was, I guess it was every other year, they were doing a full musical, and that stopped with COVID, and so they were looking into if it was going to be a combined elementary schools doing a program, or if it was going to be each individual, and I think they were going to go and speak to the individual schools and decide?
We're still working on that, but overall, we want to have a robust elementary theater program, and the question is just how's the best way to do that?
Right.
And we have some different ideas, so.
And then some discussion of the sound system and the screen at the PAC. Is there any further?
Still working on the issues with the sound system, the screen system, and then the storage container, as we mentioned, is in place, and it's going to be right on campus. It actually fits pretty well in our design out there, so we're happy with that. And there's a bit of that can be used for tennis, and a bit of that used for the performing arts. So it's been a long time coming, and we were able to get that out there with a lot of help from a lot of people. So great.
Great.
Okay. Good report. Financial planning team met May 27th. Mr. McGowan, you want to?
I'll let you do that.
We pretty much went over warrant articles.
Yeah, I was just going through the warrant articles and.
Yeah, I think the only thing to report on for, a lot of times we don't do much over the summer, but I think this summer is going to be a little bit different. I think there's two things we're going to try to address. Number one is looking at the calendar, because I know especially from the school side, the late calendar makes it very difficult for hiring. And so there's been a number of people that have brought up the lateness of the calendar, and it seems to be getting later and later. Be nice if it was moved up a little bit, so we're going to talk a little bit about that this summer, I think. And then we're going to discuss the big, sewer project that is being there. And again, while that doesn't necessarily directly impact the schools, I mean, it impacts everybody in town because it's a lot of money we're talking about. And, I think that select board worked very well with the schools on, building this building. I think it's good that we have leaders in town that work well together and actually value the input of other people. And so I think in years past, even when we had a finance planning team, I don't think they would have welcomed feedback and discussion about these issues because they weren't school related. And so I think it's nice that we're working well together, where they actually value our input and want to have some meetings and go over, how to present and get to a vote on such a large issue. So I think we get to talk sewers this summer. I miss anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Subcommittee schedule. We have finance planning team tomorrow morning, I think, or Friday morning, I think. I think we just scheduled one for Friday morning, so. Other than that, I think that's 8:15 a.m.
And then we will schedule a evaluation subcommittee prior to the July meeting that we just scheduled.
Okay. Yeah, just try to get that out
Do it
for our
virtually.
ratings. Administrative report, Dr. Daly.
Just very briefly, wanted to share what a great success I thought senior week and graduation was. I was not as involved this year. There were no pre-meetings about graduation and how to set it up. Loved that it went back to a traditional format. Mr. LaPret told me that probably 99.5% of the senior class went to the field activities on the field and just had a great time. He said, it ended at 9 and they were still there at 9:30. I mean, it's a really cohesive group of kids that was just so excited to be together, and it's just a great story. Graduation, I thought was excellent, went without a hitch. The kids were so well behaved, and just something that I really took away, and I'm looking forward to the recording to share out, but how many teachers were thanked in the student speeches throughout? I think that just really speaks so much to the relationships that we have, and it wasn't just high school teachers, which I think you see every year, but it was kids thinking back to elementary school, middle school, and just telling that story of their experience. I just thought it was a great event, and how excellent were those kids that night? They really were.
Yep,
It was a
fantastic.
great event.
Actually, on graduation, I thought you had an excellent speech, as always, Dr. Daly, but are all teachers welcomed, are welcome to that? Because it seems like it's primarily high school teachers, but,
Yeah.
some of the speakers were even calling out, elementary teachers, and so I'm wondering if, number one, if they're invited, and number two, if you know that is in the speech, do you ever give a heads up if that person wanted to attend or not?
So the answer would be to the first question that everyone's invited, but I don't think we don't send invitations to everybody. It's certainly a majority high school, but we've had different folks go. I think over the years, sometimes the retirees might ask the question. I don't think we turn, in a year like a typical year, I don't think we turn anyone away. I don't know the answer to the second question, and Ms. LaPret would better be able to answer that. I can look into that, to let them know that there's a shout out or a heads up that's coming their way.
And Mr. Friedman would like a robe next year, so.
Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah, we can.
I think everyone should wear hats.
Little terry cloth.
So,
Yeah, we don't get to wear the little pointy
Take what I can
hats
get.
either, so. Yeah.
I heard a few comments. One was, who was that woman in green in the front row?
I don't own a lot of black, I'm sorry.
You
Everyone
shine
looks great.
through, so.
I was gonna say, I think that the green is the right color, right? So,
I think I think the students will remember that forever. I think it's great. It was
Yeah,
fantastic.
it was great. There were some requests from Mr. Buckley to learn some of the handstands and flips that
There
some
we
of the
go.
kids had, so we can do that when we walk out there next
We
year.
did that one time.
I just want different facial expressions when he's going for the picture.
Yeah.
Yeah,
All over Facebook now, so.
And I was just gonna give a shout out to Eric Evans for all the photographs he
Yeah,
posted
great.
on
Very nice.
photographs. Except that, it provides an opportunity for Mr. Buckley to take a look at those facial expressions
Yeah.
to see if he can change it up a little bit.
I'm
It's
80%
like-
sure some of those were photoshopped in.
Yeah, it could well be.
That's great.
Okay. Do you have anything else on the administrative report,
Not at this time.
or? Correspondence?
Not at this time.
Future business, we have a meeting on July 25th, probably here, maybe virtual, we'll see, but about the evaluations or our own evaluations of ourselves. Meeting on Monday, August 29th, so we'll start at 4:30 for our school committee goals workshop, which I assume will be in the superintendent's conference room. And then, that will probably not be virtual, I think that would just be in person. And then 6:30 will be our general meeting, which will be however we're doing meetings at the time.
What about the budget calendar?
If there's nothing else, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We need a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous.
Go Celtics.
Thank you. Go Celtics.